across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Saturday morning, I'm Duncan Barkes, taking care of things for Peter Cardwell. It is Talk. I'm here through until midday, and as always, there is a ton of stuff to talk about. Thank you to Mark Dolan for the last 4 hours. Yesterday, when I was sitting in this chair, we spent a lot of time talking about Robert Jenrick, his defection to Reform UK. What does it mean? Whether or not there should be a by-election. We had some great calls and we had some great messages, and I thank you for it. I want to move things on just a little bit this morning, if that's all right. And I want to talk about the future of the Conservative Party, and I want you to tell me this morning on Talk, what do you think it looks like? Now, you may well have the view that it's game over for the Tories, OK? That is a narrative that's been developing. Certainly, if you speak to Nigel Farage, he takes the view that after May the 7th, when we have local elections in some parts of England, the ones that haven't been cancelled, Scotland and in Wales, he says the Tories will cease to be a national party by the 8th of May. So he says that, and he takes the view that the Tories will no longer exist in the way that we know them to be, one of the world's most successful political parties. You may have that view, and I'd like to hear it. If you do, you may have a different view. You may find yourself thinking it's too easy just to write off the Conservative Party. I'll tell you why I want to talk about this morning, because there's an interesting report doing the rounds of a number of Conservative MPs who are on defection watch, which sounds very exciting indeed. These are MPs who the party apparently believe may well just go, do you know what, old Bobby J's gone off to Reform UK, he's quite a Tory big beast, maybe the time has come for me to follow his example. And I've got some names here. This is a piece in the Independent newspaper. They've published a watch list, which sounds really sinister to me. And on the list, you have got some names you may know or may not know, but these are the people, apparently the Conservative Party, Kevin Badenoch is thinking, may well follow Robert Jenrick to Reform UK. Suella Braverman. Would that be a massive surprise? Now, I don't live in London, OK? One of the things I like doing when I'm on stations and platforms like Talk is making the point I'm not part of the media Westminster bubble that exists in many places, OK? I live on the South Coast. I do that for very good reasons. I wouldn't pay, if you paid me in vast amounts of money, I wouldn't live in London. You could pay me as much as you want. I don't want to live here, all right? Sadiq Khan has ruined this capital city. I live on the South Coast, and I hear on the grapevine, because Suella Braverman is a Conservative MP on the South Coast, and my political contacts on the coast, that she is that close to defecting to Reform UK. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't find out in the next couple of weeks that she'd decided to make that decision. So she's on this so-called watch list. Elsewhere, Sir John Hayes and Esther McVeigh. Mark Francois. Now, he was on this radio station yesterday. He was on Talk yesterday he was in with Mark Dolan. And he made it quite clear he's not planning to go anywhere. Now, I don't know Mark, but I'll make this observation. When we talk about politicians per se, I think there's a mounting amount of evidence out there. If we look at what happened with Robert Jenrick, of people going, I would never defect. You know, Robert Jenrick was telling journalists and other people, born a Tory, always a Tory, and look where he is now. Mark Francois is on the list, Andrew Rosendale and Desmond Swain. Also, some new Conservative MPs, in so much as they became elected in 2024. Katie Lamb, Bradley Thomas, Lewis Cocking, Matt Vickers and Joe Morrissey. Sorry, Katie Lamb was selected in 2024, became an MP in 2024. So some names there, which I'll be blunt with you, unless you're a political anorak and a bit of a wonk, you probably don't know. But it gives me the opportunity to ask you this morning, here on Talk, when we talk about the Conservative Party, what do you think the future holds? What does the future look like for the Conservative Party? Is it game over? If you're a Conservative Party member, if you're someone who voted for the Tories, 0344 499 1000. You know, you're listening to this lump on the radio banging on about your political party. Do you think it's unfair for me to ask the question, what does the future look like? Is it unfair for me to go, it's probably game over, isn't it? I mean, is it? 87222 is the text. Start your message with the word talk, and voice notes and WhatsApps and your calls, because I want to get as many calls on the air between now and midday as possible, because that really matters to me. 0344 499 1000. What does the future look like for the Conservative Party? And this gets us into all kinds of areas. Can Kemi Badenoch turn it around? We can have that conversation. Is there someone else in the ranks of the Tories who could do a better job than what she's doing at the moment? Is Nigel Farage right when he says it's game over for the Tories? Let's get your messages on that, and let's get your calls on that as well. And let's talk to our first guest this morning on Talk. This is Graham Stringer MP, Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, and he joins us. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for your time on this Saturday morning. Let's just kick off with something that's circulating, Graham, regarding Wes Streeting. Now, there is a story that's doing the rounds this morning about the Health Secretary, and apparently people saying that Keir Starmer really needs to get a grip on his Health Secretary for his so-called disloyalty. I'm sure you're fully aware of the story. Well, what's your take on this?
My take is Wes is saying some very sensible things. What is wrong with saying that this government, any government, should get it right first time and shouldn't have to do 13 U-turns, if I've got my arithmetic correct. So I think that's a helpful thing to say. I'm sure Wes has ambitions, as do other members of any cabinet, to at some stage be leader. But I think the response of some cabinet members shows their immaturity. A lot of them are behaving like student union politicians. They're technocrats. They've not been in this position before. They're inexperienced. And they've given the front page of a number of newspapers over to division within the Labour Party, when the real story is the Conservative Party falling apart, as you've just outlined. So I think the problem is those members of the Cabinet who are turning out to be a bit authoritarian, and they're getting a lot of policies wrong, which they have to U-turn on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the reads of the current state of the Conservative Party and the Gendrick defection to reform before we let you go this morning. But let's just continue with this Wes Streeting story, because apparently one cabinet minister told the Times newspaper that Starmer should learn from Kemi Badenoch's sacking of Robert Gendrick, adding that what Streeting is doing is so obvious he is repeatedly breaching collective responsibility. He is attacking number 10. He is undermining all of us. So there is an issue here, isn't there, where you have potentially a cabinet member, in this case Wes Streeting, who some people are saying is on manoeuvres, but also it appears, according to this report, other cabinet members who are quite keen to brief against him, which doesn't really help your party, doesn't really help the government.
The briefing against certainly doesn't help the party. When there was a briefing before Christmas that the Prime Minister had to apologise for. It was a disastrous briefing coming from very similar sources, I guess, from where these sources are coming from. But I don't think there's a direct read across from the leader of the Conservative Party, who sacked somebody who was clearly trying to do damage to the Conservative Party and leave. That's not the situation. Wes is saying what he thinks the government should be doing, what he thinks is getting wrong. Are these immature cabinet ministers really saying that he shouldn't say we should improve by getting things right first time? That's extraordinary. We don't want cabinet ministers completely gagged. Clearly they can't go out and attack the central core policy of the government, but to be open and honest about things we're getting wrong. That if you go into a pub, if people are talking about politics, they are irritated, laughing their socks off at a government that announces things, sends poor junior ministers out to say getting rid of the winter fuel payment, for instance, is a good thing, and then they scrap it. ID cards have just been scrapped, having said it's vital to our security. Yeah. They're scrapped. I mean, that's the problem, and I think Wes is hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, Times newspaper reports that there's 13 U-turns in the last 18 months and sort of speculating as to where we might be heading next, potentially with scrapping this idea of getting rid of trial by juries for certain crimes. Let's move it on to something else I'm desperate to get your thoughts on this morning, because Nigel Farage, on Thursday afternoon, when he was unveiling his latest signing, of course, Robert Gendrick, also talked about this coming week, so next week, a possible, well, not even a possible, he said there will be a Labour defection. Someone from the Labour Party joining Reform UK. Do you think that's likely?
I don't think Nigel Farage would say something that was blatantly untrue on something like this, because he'd look a fool if he didn't turn up with either a current Labour Party member or somebody who's recently been a notable Labour Party member. So I think it probably is true.
Any idea as to who that might be? Are there obvious candidates within your MPs in terms of someone who might be thinking, I'm done with Starmer, I'm off to go and see Big Nige?
I can tell you one thing and one thing only. It's not me. I was phoned by virtually every journalist from every media outlet yesterday, and they were clearly doing a ring round of potential
exercise. Yeah.
Yes, they were doing a phone round to see if anybody would say yes, it's me, but I don't know who it is.
It's interesting that you're kind enough to volunteer that information. I mean, would you ever see a time when you might? Because we've had MPs over the years go, I'm born to my party, I'm true to my party, and with Jenrick, we've seen him change his mind. Could you ever be tempted?
No. I mean, I've been in the Labour Party a long time. I'm 75 years old. I disagree with the party leadership on a number of issues, and sort of reversing back into the EU is one. I think the energy policy is damaging people. I could go through 2 or 3 policies, but there are other policies I strongly support. So no, I'm not going to leave. I've spent my life in the Labour Party. I believe it's the best vehicle for social transformation in this country. We're not doing very well at the moment, but I ain't jumping ship.
One more question, if I may. The ongoing saga, which has almost got some kind of conclusion. This is the West Midlands Police Chief, Craig Guilford, who, announced yesterday he's going to retire as opposed to resign. He's now planning to sue for constructive dismissal after he retired yesterday following the Maccabi Tel Aviv fiasco and the policing. Ultimately, his boss is a Labour Police Crime Commissioner, a guy called Simon Foster. Some people said, look, Simon, you should have sacked him. You were the only person who had the right to do so. What's your take on this whole situation?
When the Home Secretary made a statement to the House of Commons, I was very clear in what I thought. I thought he should have been sacked straight away. He had managed, by conspiracy, telling lies, to create a no-go zone for Jews in one of our major cities. I think that's a criminal act by a chief constable. And I said that action should be taken against him for malfeasance in public office. So it's a big word, that, but basically abusing his position and getting it wrong. So I think that's it's extraordinary that we had a situation where he only talked to one section of the Birmingham community and banned, effectively, Jews from that part of the city. It is appalling.
Do you not think it says something about people in public office? Because I think a number of viewers and listeners to Talk this morning, and indeed yesterday, I mean, I heard them say so, just go, why do people not resign anymore and accept responsibility when they've been caught doing something that is either incorrect or caught at it or caught not telling the truth? Is there an issue about people in public office not doing the right thing anymore?
Yeah, I think there is. I think when you go back some time, when the Falklands War started, the Tory ministers in positions just immediately offered their resignation to the Prime Minister, then Margaret Thatcher.
Well, it was Carrington, wasn't it? Carrington resigned.
Yes. Yeah. And there has been a history of that. But now there's, whoops, made a mistake. People in public have suffered. I'll get it right next time. I do think people who are fortunate enough to represent people and hold public office, if they get things badly wrong, whether they're officials like a chief constable or whether they're politicians, decency and honour mean that they should resign. And people are always asking, why is there so little trust in politics nowadays?
Exactly.
That's not the only reason, but it's a major reason that when people are caught either making a serious blunder and mistake, or they've actually done something willfully wrong, they don't resign, they try and hold on.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Graham, pleasure to talk to you on this Saturday morning. Have a good weekend. That's Graham Stringer, Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South here on Talk. Loads of messages coming in regarding the future of the Conservative Party and what it looks like. The text number is 87222. Start your message with the word talk, voice notes, WhatsApps, and your calls 0344 499 1000. This one here from Robert, who says, I don't think the Tories are dead, but they are severely damaged. They have an uphill battle to survive. The first step would be admitting the last 14 years of mistakes, says Robert. Elsewhere, this is Sean. Keith Starlin, I think he's talking about Starmer, is such a bitter and spiteful cretin. If he was removed, I think he would call an election just to be vindictive. The Tories are no better. For every good policy they have, they sneak a load of bad ones in through the back door. I believe they're very untrustworthy. We need to give reform a chance, and even if they only achieve 10% of what they say, it'll massively change our fortunes. I'll do a couple more. This is Anne. She says, I voted Tory and was starting to think Kemi was the way forward. However, after watching Robert Buckland on Mark's show yesterday, they have learnt nothing, and they're still stuffed full of bleeding heart Lib Dems. For me, it's now reform all the way. It's a really interesting interview that Mark did with Buckland. Find it on our YouTube channel or indeed on our socials, because I think it represents the problem that exists in today's Conservative Party. You know, you've got half of them who want to quit the ECHR, the other half don't. There's no consistency regarding what they are, and I think that's part of the problem. And one more here from Steve, who's in Bromsgrove, who says, as a Conservative councillor and Conservative Association officer, it was over for me in 2015 when Cameron signed the country up to Agenda 2030. I'm homeless. I was homeless politically until reform appeared, a paid-up member since 2023. More of your messages coming up, more of your calls as well, 0344 499 1000. Shortly, joining me in the studio, we have Philip Cazelli, Senior Fellow with the New Culture Forum, and also Rachel Henry, Head of Advocacy at the IPPR. We'll be going through some of this morning's stories here on Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Saturday morning. Good morning, I'm Duncan Barkes, in for Peter Cardwell. This is Talk, the home of common sense. A stack of messages coming in. Add to my stack, 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. You can send WhatsApps to 0344 499 1000. And if you want to embrace good old-fashioned, the original social media, like, you know, a proper conversation, 0344 499 1000. We can have a gab, as they sometimes say in Liverpool. Some of these messages here talking about what does the future look like for the Conservative Party. This one here from Amanda in London. As most people know, the Tories are no longer true Tories. Reform UK is now the home of real Conservatives and what remains of socialist mixed population. I think that's right. Amanda, thank you. Roger in Hounslow. Duncan, within 3 minutes of starting the show this morning, you said something interesting in that Sadiq Khan is ruining London. Well, he has. I couldn't agree more, and that's why I'm moving out of London to Norwich for a gentler way of life, says Rog. Couple more here. Everything seems to be pointing towards Wes Streeting being the surprise Labour defector that Farage said was coming, says Ernie on the text. We'll get into that with our guests in a few moments' time. You can probably hear them chuckling away in the corner. I'll just do a couple more because there's nothing worse than asking people to send messages to a radio show and them not being read out. This one here is from James, who says, wasn't it Churchill who says something along the lines of, it doesn't matter which horse and cart you get on, as long as you get there, when talking about his defections to other parties, says James. I'm not aware of that quote, but you might be right. And just one more here from Mike in Lincoln. Duncan, I used to be a Tory member who knocked on doors and delivered leaflets for them. That was when they gave the impression they aligned with my sentiments. Then the One Nation caucus did for them and also for me. Because they align with my sentiments, I will vote reform for the foreseeable future. All this hype about Badenoch, I'd advise people to look at her voting record to see how she doesn't step outside the boundaries, and all this hype about leaving the ECHR simply is not believable, says Mike in Lincoln. You heard some fabulous rumblings in the background a few moments ago. Let's bring in Philip Cazelli, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, and Rachel Henry, Head of Advocacy at the IPPR. Welcome both.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for coming in and giving up a chunk of your Saturday morning. Just so our listeners and viewers are clear regarding the New Culture Forum, Philip, just a kind of thumbnail sketch?
Yeah, we're a think tank, but we're also a media channel, and we are now a grassroots movement as well. New Culture Forum has 40 branches across the country, so please do come and join us. And
you were founded by the great Peter Little, who sadly passed away recently, but a great man, I think we can agree.
Yeah, so
fabulous.
An absolutely iconic figure in Conservative politics, and who was talking about culture being front and centre of the debate 20 years ago.
He was ahead of the curve.
He was ahead of the curve, massively.
And Rachel, the IPPR? In a couple of sentences?
Yes, we are the UK's leading progressive think tank, so we come up with kind of big ideas for government, and we're on the kind of centre-left of the spectrum, but we work with all political parties, but we're a progressive
Excellent.
think tank.
And your first time doing this on Talk.
It is.
So welcome to the Talk family. There's so much stuff to go through here. I want to talk about defections, if I may, only because it is the obvious thing to talk about. But not necessarily first off with Robert Jenrick, because I think there's something interesting developing here regarding a potential defection from the Labour Party to Reform UK. Now, Nigel Farage gave a press conference at 4:30 on Thursday afternoon. He unveiled Robbie Jenrick, which we all know about. But he also talked about next week, so in the next 7 or 8 days potentially, he will be unveiling someone that he said would be a well-known Labour figure joining Reform UK. Rachel, I'll start with you. Do you think, one, that's likely? There is some speculation knocking around this morning it might be Wes Streeting, only because there's a lot of briefing against him in the newspapers, so someone's trying to get their shot in first or whatever. But I mean, can you imagine someone leaving Labour to join Reform?
Look, I don't think it's going to be an MP. I can't think of, any sitting MPs in the Labour Party that I can think of that would defect to Reform. Look, there are some similar interests, across, particularly concerns on the economy, particularly, I think, across Reform and across Labour and that kind of, those red wall seats. But I think it's more likely to be a big name outside of the Labour Party kind of circling that, people sometimes float Maurice Glassman woman, or Kate Hoey or someone. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's a councillor.
I could see Kate Hoey doing it. You know, I could see. What's your take, Philip?
Well, I think there's a whole raft of what used to be called blue Labour members who would be absolutely, you know, up for it and right for it. I think we're talking about. Ultimately, we're talking about working class concerns here. We're talking about regional concerns. We're talking about the Northwest divide. Yeah. I think Reform are so strong in the Northern Heartlands. It's just going to be an absolute. It's going to be a whitewash. So it might be someone like that. It might be It might well be a northern-based MP. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if it was West.
Well, we had Graham Stringer on earlier, and he denied it, and he said, you know, all of the journalists are phoning around every Labour MP at the weekend, going, "Is it you? Is it you? Is it you?" In some kind of fishing exercise. But I mean, there's a challenge here, isn't there? Because when you pull off a defection on the scale of Robert Jenrick, which is what's happened with Reform, any Labour defection has got to be a name that at least some people know. And I think, Rachel, from what you said, I don't think it's going to be on that scale.
I mean, I don't personally think it can be. You know, I do think, you know, Labour values and Reform's values and their kind of policy prospectus are very far apart. So I would be incredibly surprised. I mean, it'll be exciting in a way if it is. So I'll certainly be watching, but I would be surprised. Look, in some ways, I actually think kind of, you know, Robert Jenrick's, you know, defection has weakened Reform. You know, I think Reform's big pitch...
That's really interesting. Go on.
Well, look, I think Reform's big pitch is that it is willing to upset the status quo. And I'm very sceptical of the solutions that they are putting forward and whether they would actually be able to deliver any tangible change. You know, I think the way of getting there really matters, but you know, it becomes questionable that they will be willing to kind of, you know, enact the bold, radical things that they say that they are willing to do if it's the same faces from the last 14 years that represented austerity, corruption, chaos.
Yeah, so the narrative that, you know, Reform was at risk of becoming Conservative Party version 2, you think that's a real concern?
I think so. I think it is really going to weaken them, and I think fundamentally people really do want that change to the status quo.
Definitely.
You know, like anti-establishment sentiment has doubled in the last 50 years. People really don't want the same old politics. So you can see why they're attracted to such an effective PR man like Nigel Farage. You know, you can see why that's happening, but I think it really weakens what that picture of
People are fed up and they're looking for an answer, and I think Reform UK is giving them the answer. But there is a problem, a perception problem, I believe. And I was doing this show same time yesterday. I got into quite a bit of trouble by saying, why doesn't Jenrick do a by-election just to prove he's got a fresh mandate? And I was like, well, he doesn't have to. It's not convention. I mean, who cares about convention? It's about optics, right? He could win that, and he probably would if you look at all of the polling, and that would put Reform in an even better place. But I take a slightly different view as to why Jenrick could be damaging for Reform, not for the reasons you've just outlined, but quite simply because I believe he is such a player and there's such an ego that he will cause infighting.
I mean, long term, that is an issue. I think you've got two big beasts in a very small pen there, and well, several other big beasts as well. I think there's going to be huge ego problems there. I think short term, Robert Jenrick, and we can see this from comments and a little bit of research as well. Robert Jenrick is going to be very good for Reform, but it's the longer term thing that is concerning. But it's also other people who just aren't in the uni-party picture. I'm thinking particularly Rupert Lowe. So Rupert Lowe is appearing in polls at the moment with a hypothetical party.
Which doesn't exist.
So he is just in the wings, and when he does step in there, I think things are going to really change, because many people, natural voters of Reform, really look to Rupert Lowe because he does change things. He isn't afraid to say anything, and he gets things done. There are other figures as well. I'm thinking about Ben Habib, for example. So if Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe got together, then that would be two fairly big bodies of Conservatives there, and a real power base. So I think, sorry, just to finish the point. So I think it's much more complicated than this kind of two-party thing. And you know, Keir Starmer came out yesterday and said, oh well, the Conservatives are in trouble, and this and that. And it's not the Conservatives you need to worry about, mate. No. It's everybody else.
I think you're right, but and we're going to have to go to a break in a second. But my concern is when you have Ben Habib and Advance UK, you have Rupert Lowe potentially he may be looking at setting up a new party based on the back of his polling. I think it was like 1 in 10 people would support it or whatever. That splits and fragments the right of the political spectrum, and potentially, if it's that split and fragmented, it could allow Starmer or a left-wing coalition back into Downing Street. Listen, you're not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
We're going to find out in a few moments' time whether or not Britain is broken. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Saturday morning, I'm Duncan Barkes, taking care of business for Peter Cardwell. It is Talk, the home of common sense. In the studio with me, we have Philip Gazzelli, Senior Fellow at the New Cultural Forum. We also have Rachel Henry, Head of Advocacy at the IPPR think tank. A load of stuff we're chewing over here, including what does the future look like for the Conservative Party. Your thoughts on this, 0344 499 1000. Let's take a call in Guildford. This is Peter. Hello, Peter.
Yeah, good morning, Duncan. Yeah, the Conservative Party shouldn't have a future. They are the party of mass and enforced immigration. No one wanted it. They brought in millions of migrants, mostly from the third world. You don't live in London because it's turning into a, you-know-what, home, and that's why. Not only that, the Conservative Party are the party of pointless wars and things like a pointless lockdown, which bankrupted the country.
Okay. And it's an interesting view, and not a new one, Peter, I say with respect. I've heard it plenty of times in the past. If the party is so damaged, why are they continuing to rise in the polls at the moment?
Well, it all depends whose polls. I mean, I haven't seen the polls you're talking about, but...
Well, a number of polls, just so you're in the loop, have seen increases for the Conservative Party, certainly in the last couple of months. I mean, go back a year, and, you know, they were bumping, well, not bumping on the bottom, but they're sort of like 10, 11, 12%. Now they're nudging 19, 20%. That's not necessarily the sign of a party that's over.
Well, I think it is. We need a party of repatriations, mass repatriations. We need to pack all these illegal migrants up and send them back where they came from. There's no reason why we can't do that.
All right, Peter, good call. Thank you. Let's just get some reaction from our guest in the studio. Rachel, we heard what Peter said. He blames the Conservative Party for mass uncontrolled immigration. Is he right?
Look, I sympathise that people want secure borders and are concerned about the small boats. Any sovereign nation needs secure borders, and we do need to get on top of that. Yeah. Migration is actually going down at the moment. One thing that I do think we do have to remember about this is people are not able to claim for right to asylum from abroad without coming here, so that is fueling a lot of this. Another thing that we have to remember is people are fleeing from war, and from really significant situations. So, you know, people from Afghanistan, you know, the UK was a perpetrator of that war there. Many of those people put themselves, their families, their lives on the line to support the British Armed Forces in Afghanistan, which was frankly, you know, a war that was a folly. You know, lots of armed servicemen have come back and have been left to kind of, you know, sit on the streets. And now we are talking about, you know, pushing back these, you know, swarms of people. You know, really, the world is an insecure place. So yes, we have to have secure borders, but we need some humanity in this.
And people often use the humanity argument because it's very powerful, but they're not all people who are fleeing oppression or persecution. You can talk to people who've come to this country.
They're not even mostly
illegally, and they will say that they're here for a better way of life. So I mean, it's not clear cut as saying everyone who's fleeing persecution, then they should come here, is it?
But our economy needs migration to support itself. We need people to do certain jobs. The NHS would fall apart if we did not have the doctors and nurses that are willing to come here and work. You can talk about the sustainability of the NHS
the model of the
NHS.
We changed the model of the NHS. The model of the NHS is a 1947 model that serves Britain in 1947. I've been arguing for years and years and years that we need to change that. That's what we need to do. We don't make it worse by having, what, 1.2, 1.3 million gross people coming in every year. And the humanity argument, I agree completely. Let's not have lots and lots of Afghans coming into the country because they are 22 times more likely to sexually assault women and children.
I make the point because
I think it's a key point. You can't have humanity for some people and not humanity for other people, and you have to put your own people first. Context is everything, and you can't just have the context over there and not the context
Okay,
here.
for the benefits of people who are on YouTube, or people who aren't on YouTube or on smart TV, they can't see Rachel shaking her head and getting increasingly exasperated with what Philip said. So Rachel, come back on that.
Look, I get really concerned when people try to talk about decent people looking for a good life. You know, you were talking specifically about Afghans who,
you mentioned Afghans, so I'm just responding to the actual point.
Those people put their lives on the line for the British Armed Forces. So to be sat here and talking about them as rapists and murderers, I find incredibly offensive.
But there are lots of rapists and murderers coming over here from Afghanistan.
There are many white people who also commit rape and murder.
22 times more Afghanis. 22 times more Afghanis. So you're making a judgment there, aren't you? You're making a call. Who's more important? The people coming over on the boats, you don't know who they are. You don't know what they did in the war.
This is why
women and children. Look, the percentage, the possibility that women and children are going to be attacked by this particular demographic. We're talking about Afghans.
One thing, I understand people want the right people coming to the UK and they want to feel safe. I completely understand that. That is why we need safe and legal routes, because we can vet people properly from where they are applying for asylum. One thing I just want to quickly pick up on
and Philip, you can come back on that.
If I can just really quick, I am pivoting a bit, but something I find really interesting. So people are constantly saying, you know, look, people, not everybody actually, but I want to make the point that I think London is a brilliant place, and I think it's a brilliant place because of its diversity. I think it is a success story of multiculturalism. It is interesting. People want to come here because we have a diverse and interesting population. We have wonderful restaurants, wonderful art, wonderful music. It is a success story of that. So I think constantly scapegoating migrants and you know, some of the downsides that is bringing.
Nobody's scapegoating anybody. I'm just dealing with facts. And I don't think, honestly, if I'm being really honest, those people coming over in boats, they're not coming to London because they want to go to the Tate Modern. Right? I think that's a fairly sensible thing to say. I don't think they're coming over here for the culture, for the restaurants, for the amazing richness of diversity. They are coming here for what they can get. And that is the key motivation. Not all of them, but that is the key motivation. We see them on boats all the time, and you cannot manage the levels of legal immigration It's not so much the illegal immigration that I'm really concerned with. It's the tsunami of legal immigration. London has completely changed in terms of its demographic over the last 30 years. That is terrifying. That's unprecedented in the modern world. So we really need to be careful. It's an incredibly dangerous place. And it isn't just this idea of, oh, well, you know, let's get everybody over here because you can get Afghani food on a Thursday night. But do you know what? I'd rather do without the Afghani food and just have a little bit more coherence, a little bit more safety, and a little bit more sense in terms of speed and impact. That's all most people are asking for.
Let me just ask you a question, Rachel, off the back of that, because you put forward a very, very substantial pitch there as London being this marvellous city. I don't like living in London, which is why I left, okay? You know, I now live on the south coast for better quality of life and some other reasons. But people constantly get in contact with us here at Talk and they say London has changed for the worse over the last couple of decades. Now, you put forward a case saying, no, it's not. It's just a great, diverse place, etc., etc. Why do they have that perception then? Why do they feel like that if it's so good?
Look, one thing that I do think has changed about London is the unaffordability. You know, people don't have a sense
They're not talking about property prices.
Hang on, you don't think the demographic has changed?
I mean, the demographic of London has changed because migration all over the world has changed. The world has become more insecure.
But what about the speed of the demographic?
The demographic of all of Europe, of all of the world has changed.
London is way ahead.
If I can just say, we are not aiming for populations of the world to remain completely static. We cannot go back to the 1950s. That is not how the world operates. Everywhere has changed.
That's a straw man argument.
What I am saying is, you are talking about all of the downsides of migration, and you say that you would prefer to do away with Afghani food. Would you prefer to do away with the NHS? Would you prefer to do away with certain sectors of the economy?
I'd already told you that I'd like the model of the NHS changing because it is not fit for purpose.
Can I just very quickly make the point as well?
But can I just make the point? It's not fit for purpose for the kind of society that you're advocating.
All right, Rachel, respond to that, and then we'll come back in a few moments' time. Go on.
Migrants provide a net economic benefit to the UK. Actually, many economic migrants come here wanting to contribute, looking for work, and they put into the UK more than they take out. They are of working age, and they are less likely to use the benefit system and the NHS and all of those things. So I think we need a fair and balanced argument. While I recognise people's concerns and want and desire for secure borders, we have to think about some of the benefits of migration as well.
All right, I've got a stack of messages coming in regarding the last 10 minutes of what we've been talking about. We'll get to those shortly in the Talk studio.
So can I just make one point?
No, can you come back and make a point in a second? Philip Cazelli, Senior Fellow from the New Cultural Forum, Rachel Henry, Head of Advocacy at the IPPR, are here with me, Duncan Barkes, on this Saturday morning at Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Saturday morning, it's Talk. I'm Duncan, in for Peter, through until midday. We've wiped down the ring, right? You know, and the trainers have been in. They've all had a little suck. This is Philip and Rachel on a quarter of orange to try and become re-energised for the final chunk of our session this hour here at Talk. And I've got so many messages coming in. It's kicked off a little bit, I won't lie to you, particularly when we talk about London. And if you just put the radio on, you're streaming us on YouTube. Rachel is very much of the view. Tell me if I'm misrepresenting you. The London is great, very diverse, and it's a good place to be, right? I'm not misrepresenting you.
I have many objections to London, one of the things being the unaffordability.
Yeah, but apart from
I
that,
think the diversity is a huge benefit to
Philip
London.
thinks that's a lot of old guff, right?
Well, just in terms of migrants, low-skilled migrants cost the British taxpayer by pension age £500,000.
A yes or no would have done. You disagree with her, right?
London.
I've got listeners here. I must read their messages out.
London is a tough space, especially for Jews.
Okay, let's do some of these messages. And they keep coming in at such a rate that I keep losing my place. So do forgive me. This is David, who says, I can't believe your female guest, that's Rachel, thinks that importing men from the third world is acceptable. Absolutely appalling. Migrants do not provide a net economic benefit. This is an out-and-out lie and should be called out. People on the left just can't stop themselves.
No, I've just called out that lie.
You have? You've done that? Okay. Elsewhere, let me just find a few more here. Duncan, I'm a Londoner, says Brad, but I moved out to the countryside as it is no longer Britain. I feel like a total stranger. I have a massive issue with people who insist on importing their culture into this country and refuse to integrate. That's what mass migration causes, says Brad, who's now living in Cambridgeshire. And I'll do one more here. If I can find it, forgive me, because they're coming in so quickly. Dan from Kent says, can you ask your guest, Duncan, if you're an Afghan who helped the British, why would you pay to cross the channel in a small boat and throw documents into the sea? This doesn't make any sense to me, says Dan in Kent. That's an interesting question.
We are not granting asylum to all Afghans who want to come here. You know, a lot of the backlog of that is Afghan. So we are not granting asylum.
There was a murmuring of disagreement.
In practice, we are. The point is that the systems don't work. It's just deluge. Nothing works. And you cannot deal with mass immigration. It doesn't work on any level in terms of society, in terms of culture, any of it, in terms of demographic. It is dangerous. It is dangerous to the most vulnerable aspects of society. Let's stop it.
One thing I will agree with one of the callers on, after quite a deluge of criticism, which I will take on the chin.
You're taking it well, but, you know, no disrespect, eyes wide open when you come in here. Do you know what I mean? And ears wide open. Go on.
Look, integration, I do think, is a fair point, and I think it is something that the government have started to talk about, and I do think that is a fair point. I think for migration to work well and diversity to work well, there has to be a desire for communities to integrate, but I do think with that, there needs to be support to do it. There needs to be support for people to learn English. There needs to be thriving community, you know, hubs and neighbourhoods, you know, and a lot of that has fallen away over the last 15 years.
Do you need support to learn English?
Yes,
it's never been simpler with modern technology. If you come to a country and you want to learn a language, go online, get an app.
No, I think if you want integration to work well, you have to pay for it and you have to be willing to invest in it.
Integration simply cannot work with mass migration. The two things are polar opposites. My father came to Britain, and I'm from an immigrant background actually. My father came to Britain in 1959 from Hungary, learned the language, started a business, got married, had children. You know, he could do that then because it wasn't the time of mass migration. He didn't want to impose his culture or his religion on anybody else. He was happy to integrate. We cannot have that now. It simply doesn't work.
Right, let me ask you to pause for a second. There's something else I want to talk about before we let you go on your merry way, and hopefully you two can have a beer afterwards. But we have some breaking news here at Talk. It just turned 10 to 11. This is a statement from Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei saying he holds Donald Trump responsible for the, quote, casualties, damages and slander he has levelled against the Iranian nation during the protests. So no doubt more on that particular news story at 11 o'clock this morning. Now, related to what we were talking about, life in London, but bear in mind, not all of our listeners are in London, some of them for very good reasons, as we heard from Brad in Cambridgeshire. There's a story doing the rounds this morning about shoplifting in the capital, and I wanted to mention this because this is There's a humorous element to this, but actually it is fundamentally quite depressing. So we've got the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, who says the capital, London, is one of the world's safest cities, but police and retailers are warning that gangs and changing demographics are pushing up thefts. There's a list here of stuff that's been stolen. This is the most up-to-date set of figures. Sunglasses, very popular to get nicked. Sinks, another thing in your kitchen. It gets better, or it gets worse. Disposable vapes, quite obvious. And in 2025, 15 washing machines were shoplifted in the capital city. Now, we might laugh at this, and I think there's a sidebar activity we can probably throw out to talk listeners and viewers. If you've ever nicked a washing machine, tell us how you do it, because I'd be genuinely fascinated to know. But on a more serious point, it's this. I mean, I made the point earlier, I don't live in London, I don't like London anymore, I think it has changed. Rachel, you and I will have to agree to disagree on that. That's perfectly all right and perfectly healthy. But I see shoplifting all over the place, right? I live in a market town called Chichester in West Sussex, where my local co-op, and we might do a bit more on this later, and this is no word, I was genuinely shocked and equally depressed when I first saw this. Packets of sausages, so your run-of-the-mill bangers, your Cumberlands, in a Perspex box
with an alarm on them,
with a GPS tracker. Right, the wine has gone into a cabinet, a locked cabinet. So if you want to, if you happen to like your red wine and sausages, and obviously I do, because look at the size of my stomach. If you go there, you have to get someone to open the cabinet, like you're 4 years old, to get your bottle of wine out. And the GPS tracker thing on the bangers is just bizarre. I'll start off with you, Rachel. Shoplifting. I don't know whereabouts you live, and you don't have to be too detailed. But have you noticed a change over the years? Because I have.
I mean, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I think it's indicative of two things. The first, people are feeling really seriously hard up. Right. The second, it's kind of almost become decriminalised, as I understand. And I think there has, you know, it speaks to the erosion of public services. You know, the police have, you know, loss of funding and police officers, you know, during like 15 years of austerity. One thing that really annoys me...
Isn't that an excuse, though?
Look, the
law's the law, right? You can't make excuses for nicking a packet of bangers.
I'm not making excuses for it, but I do think that people are becoming...
People are
becoming opportunistic, aren't they?
Yeah.
They know that they're not going to be criminalised for doing it, so they're becoming opportunistic, and it's becoming more organised. You can see people literally ganging up around kind of, you know, entry points to like supermarkets. I feel awful for security guards, but... Look, one thing that does really annoy me, and the government could actually just do something about tomorrow, small supermarkets don't often stock like cheaper goods, and all of the supermarkets, just at the time when inflation were going through the roof, decided that to access any kind of, you know, cheaper goods, any of the savings and discounts, you suddenly had to have a club card for everything. You know, that's just utterly ridiculous. It's supermarkets profiteering that, you know...
What's that got to do with shoplifting?
The government... Well, I think people sometimes are going in and thinking, you know what, I don't want to pay £10 for olive oil. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
and they're becoming opportunistic.
But hang on, that doesn't work. I don't want to pay 65 grand for a Jaguar, but I don't go nick it, do I?
Look, I'm not excusing it, but you have to recognise that this has happened at a time when costs have gone through the roof, and there isn't basically any sanction. But this didn't happen 20 years ago. It's happened for a reason.
OK, Philip.
Well, it's happened for a reason, because we've got mass migration, we've got all of those things, the culture is falling apart, there is no cohesion. The economic argument isn't actually front and central. Let's just think about it, we've got 12%, it's risen by 12% over the last 12 months, and businesses are looking at 17 million a year, they're losing 17 million a year. The reason costs have gone up is because shops are just clawing the money back from the shoplifting. Now, I was in Boots the other day, not in London where I live. A woman filled a pram with goods, walked out of Boots, the alarms were going off. Nobody did a thing. Now, the reason people don't do a thing is because, unlike 20 years ago, you could get stabbed, you could get shot. There is it's not worth it. If you're a security guard on minimum wage,
why would you challenge anyone?
Why would you put your life on the line?
Yeah.
I was in the King's. Many viewers will know from London. The Waitrose in King's Cross Station. Every day, I was talking to the security guard there. So we just don't do anything. Every day, something is happening there. It is an absolute mess. So what's hilarious is, Khan says, "Oh, it's the safest place. London is the safest. It's safer than it's ever been. It's better than it's ever been." Yeah. We're looking at catastrophe here, and culture is front and centre. It's the key issue is that society has fallen apart, and the economic problems, which are on the back of it, are secondary.
All right, listen, I'm going to wrap it up for this hour. Thank you both for coming in. Thank you for being good sports. Go and have a beer somewhere. There will be a bar open somewhere.
Yeah,
might be £10 a pint, but do enjoy it. Philip Gazzelli, Senior Fellow from the New Culture Forum. Rachel Henry, Head of Advocacy at the IPPR. Thank you. You want to pick up on anything you've just heard? 0344 499 1000 is our number here at Talk for your calls, your voice notes, and also for your WhatsApps. I'm particularly keen to get into this shoplifting story because we've got the figures here for London. If you know how to nick a washing machine, do get in contact this morning. But more seriously, what have you noticed in your neighbourhood? I certainly noticed an increase in shoplifting. You heard some points there from Philip and also from Rachel as to why they think it's on the increase. Let me know this morning on Talk why you think these figures are going up and up and up. Why are people nicking things? 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApps. Saturday morning, I'm Duncan Barkes. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'll be honest with you this morning, I'm a little bit disappointed, all right? I'm a little bit disappointed because it's been 10 minutes, so we've been talking about shoplifting, including these figures for London in 2025 that saw 15 washing machines nicked. And I said to you, how do you nick a washing machine? It's the funnier, slightly more humorous part of this particular conversation we're having this morning. And I'm looking through my messages here, and no one has suggested how you can actually successfully steal a washing machine. To be slightly less humorous, 0344 499 1000, as we talk about shoplifting this morning in London. The figures are out, and whilst the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, will have you believe everything in his marvellous city is just joyful. The birds are tweetering away, you have someone playing a pipe on the street corner, it's lovely and beautiful. Well, the figures for shoplifting are going up, so it's a serious conversation we need to have this morning regarding shoplifting. You tell me and share your stories with viewers and listeners to talk. What have you seen in your neighbourhood? Has it got worse? It certainly got worse in mine. I've got some pictures from my local co-op, which we're going to use a little bit later on. We don't need to do it now. We'll do it later. It's fine. But I want you to see how absurd it is when you live somewhere. And I live in a place in West Sussex, the wilds of West Sussex, a place called Chichester. Relatively genteel. It has changed, like many places over the years. But the convenience store there, one of many co-ops, has sausages in a Perspex box with a GPS tracker attached in a fridge, which begs so many questions, including, if that GPS tracker was activated, are you seriously telling me Sussex police are going to go, all right, lads, quick, it's activated, and, like, you know, just send a couple of cars off somewhere to go and pick someone up for nicking a packet of Cumberlands? I mean, it's just bizarre. But seriously, let's talk about shoplifting this morning. Has it got worse, and what have you seen? Also, as we continue to mull over the future of the Conservative Party, what do you think the future looks like for the Conservatives? Off the back of the defection of Robert Jenrick, of course, but also a report out this morning saying there are 11 Conservative MPs, 11 on a watch list, which is normally reserved for terrorists. This is a watch list of those who might defect to Reform UK. Names on the list include Joy Morrissey, Matt Vickers, Lewis Cocking, Bradley Thomas, Katie Lamb, Andrew Rosendale, Sir Desmond Swain, Mark Francois, who was on this radio station yesterday and said he's not going anywhere. Also, Suella Braverman. My money would be on Braverman. I've heard a whisper on the South Coast, that is likely. And also Esther McVeigh. I know Esther. I've known her for almost 20 years. She tells me she's not planning on defecting. But what does the future look like for the Conservative Party? Continue to send me your messages regarding that, and also your voice notes, and we'll take your calls. 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your WhatsApps and your voice notes. Text come into 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Honey in Swansea says, Duncan, it's simple. People shoplift because they can. No challenge, no consequences. They start small, get away with it, and steal more until it becomes a habit. Enjoying today's show. You're very kind. Yeah, they steal more until it becomes a habit, including washing machines. We're learning this morning. If anyone can tell me how you can successfully nick a washing machine, not that I'm advocating such behaviour, let me know. Let's get further views on the air this morning at Talk. This is Alex Wilson. Alex is a Reform UK Assembly member, and he joins us. Hello, Alex.
Good morning, Duncan. Great to be with you.
You too, and thank you so much for giving up a chunk of your Saturday morning. Looking at my window here, quite a nice Saturday in the capital city, despite the rise in shoplifting. We might get into that in a few moments' time, but of course the big story of the last 48 hours has been the defection of Robert Jenrick from the Conservatives to your party, Reform UK. Do you welcome him?
Absolutely. He's a huge asset for us. His passion, his charisma, his profile, his knowledge. He brings so much to the table, and we're all absolutely chuffed to bits that he's joined us. I think he's been thinking about it for a while, but it's always a big decision to make when you move parties. I know, having done that myself 5 years ago.
Did you move from the Conservatives as well?
I did, yeah.
What was your motivation for moving, if I can ask?
It was lockdown, second lockdown in particular. I thought the most egregious assault on civil liberties in living memory, and not something that a right of centre government should be doing.
Right. Do you think you can trust Robert Jenrick?
Absolutely, 100%. I think he's a really, really strong character, and he believes in the things that we believe in. He shares.
I wasn't asking about his character. I'm asking about whether or not you can trust him, because some people are making the point, and I think it's a fair point to make, and it's not an anti-reform point. If anything, it's an anti-Jenrick point, which is some of his behaviour over the last couple of days. You know, sitting in shadow cabinet meetings, making notes, and then knowing within a few days' time he's probably going to jump ship. Pretty unpalatable stuff. Can you trust him?
No, absolutely. Of course we can. He's joined us. We're very pleased that he's joined us, and what he brings is fantastic. And yeah, of course we can trust him. We can trust. Yeah, he'll have been through a vetting process, just like anybody who wants to be involved with the party at a high level. And yeah, it truly is incredible to have him on board. But what it shows is the absolute despair that the Conservatives are in. I mean, you saw Kemi's video on Thursday morning. To me, it reminded me of an ISIS hostage video. She's completely lost control of the situation, and she's lost control of her party. She's in real trouble. The Tories are on course for an absolute kicking in the local elections in just a few weeks' time. I'm out here this morning in Croydon campaigning, somewhere we're fighting to take seats off the Conservatives and off Labour as well, of course. A really exciting year ahead for us as a party, and a terrible year coming up for the Conservatives.
You make an interesting comment there, Alex, which is she looked like she was in some kind of hostage video. What made you conclude that?
Well, she just looked like she was, rabbit in the headlights, terrified. She's lost control of the narrative, lost control of the agenda, and lost control of the trajectory of British politics, particularly on the right of centre. We are the new game in town. We are here to replace, not do a deal with, the Conservatives. That's what we're here to do. We are right up and down the country, in Scotland, in Wales, here in London, and in all those other council elections that are coming up. We are the challengers to Labour and this failing government. And if you want to get rid of Starmer, it starts by voting Reform on May the 7th.
Yeah, and this is interesting. Let's talk about getting rid of Starmer, because I've never known a Prime Minister be so bad at what he does. I've never known a government be so chaotic in my lifetime, which is 50+ years on this planet. And I increasingly take the view that Labour are rewiring this country in a way that will ultimately destroy it. That's my view. It's not the view of Talk, but that's how I feel about it. So I'm up for anything that might see a change of occupant in 10 Downing Street. But here's the challenge, okay? And this is based on what I believe always happens on the run-up to general elections. The polls get narrower and narrower, right? Because people are thinking more about how they're going to vote, etc., etc. Where would you stand on a pact with the Conservative Party? So there's some right-of-centre coalition there that came together in order to keep Starmer and co out of Downing Street for a second term.
Completely against the idea of any kind of pact, any kind of deal, any kind of merger. It simply isn't happening. The two parties, us and the Conservatives, we are very, very clearly distinct parties. We'll go into those elections, we'll both be doing what we can to win, but ultimately it's up to the voters to decide. And the polls...
it is up to the voters to decide, and
we're the real challengers.
Alex, you're saying exactly the same as Kemi Badenoch, right? There's no possible idea of a pact between her party and Reform UK. But let me tell you what my concern is, and tell me if you think I'm overreacting, because I can take it on my many chins, it's fine, right? This is my concern. My concern would be the right of centre, if you like, politically becomes fragmented. So you've got Reform UK, you've got the Conservatives, who we don't know what they'll be polling, but certainly, let's say, 10 to 12%, on their worst possible day, if they head towards a general election, if things have really gone down the plug hole. Then you might have Advance UK, the current outfit, headed up by Ben Habib. They're talking about fielding candidates. Then you've got Rupert Lowe, who clearly is looking at setting up a new political party, because his polling doing the rounds over the last 48 hours saying that 1 in 10 people would vote for a party headed up by him. Remarkable. So potentially there's 4 parties there on the right of the political spectrum. Now, they're all fighting against each other. You could see Labour, the Greens, shudder, and the Lib Dems, who I consider to be Labour enablers, coming together as well, which may well achieve greater numbers than a right-wing coalition, and you could put Starmer and co, or a left-wing government, back in Downing Street. Why won't Reform and the Tories think about people and not their parties? Has he frozen?
Well,
hello.
You mentioned the parties on the left. There's obviously fragmentation on the left as well. There's fragmentation on the left as well. We'll see what happens if Jeremy Corbyn gets his outfit up and in, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're selecting candidates right up and down the country, fighting those elections. Gained over 100 seats in council by-elections since the general election. Half of those have come from Labour. We are the real challengers here, and if other people want to get, the message I would say is, get on board or get out of the way. If you want to get rid of Starmer, you have to back Reform.
All right. Alex, I'm going to leave it there, not because I don't like anything that you've been saying, but your connection isn't great and you're increasingly turning into a Dalek. But I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. That's Reform UK's Alex Wilson here this morning on Talk. I mean, tell me if you think I've got this wrong, all right? But I would... I don't know if I can say this. I think I will. I would die in a ditch to ensure we do not have another left-wing government in Downing Street, OK? I feel that strongly about it. But my really, really big concern, and Jacob Rees-Mogg has got this view as well, and he's not a stupid man, which is unless there's some kind of agreement, some kind of pact between the Conservatives and Reform, there is a very real risk that we might end up with a socialist government after the next general election. Tell me what you think about that. 0344 499 1000 for your calls. You can voice note me on that. You can WhatsApp me. You can text as well. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm just going to do some breaking news. Then we're going to take a call from John in Rutland, who is going to tell a story which you will want to hear. All right, do not go anywhere. Put your life on hold for the next 10 minutes because we might be able to work out how to successfully nick a washing machine. Can someone just tell the Met Police? I'm just doing this for journalistic purposes. Some breaking news this morning on Talks. Tony Blair has announced he's honoured to join US President Donald Trump's Gaza Board of Peace, which you will have heard about in our news bulletins, which aims to prevent future conflict in the territory. This is the former Prime Minister who's expressed his honour in a statement that's just been released. More on that as the morning continues. Now, John's in Rutland and he's on Talk. Hello, John.
Good morning, Duncan.
You've been kind enough to answer my plea regarding this. Well, it is a serious story. We're talking about the increased figures or the latest figures regarding shoplifting in London. But the thing that leapt out of this for me was this idea that 15 washing machines have been nicked in the capital in 2025. Not the kind of item you can put in your handbag. So I'm wondering, how do you steal a washing machine? And I chucked this question out to the Talk audience, and you've been good enough to give me a call. What have you got?
Well, this was in London in the late 70s in Woolworths.
Woolies?
Yeah, Woolies. And the lad I was with, whose name I won't mention because it's quite unusual, his mum, her washing machine broke. So on a Saturday, a busy Saturday, Woolworths had an exit onto the high street and one at the back onto a quieter road. So we got a yacht flare, a red yacht flare, and let it off in the middle of the shop. And as the security guard was evacuating everyone out the front door, we wheeled the washing machine out the back door into a waiting van. But I'm not proud of it, and I'm not recommending, people to go and do it.
No, I think legally, mate, we're covered with that, so thank you, because you suggested you're not proud of it and you wouldn't recommend it as a course of action. Did you get away with it then? Have you just admitted a crime?
Yeah, no, we got away with it. Literally, just we were really well prepared. We had a van, we had a sack barrow to put it on, and we wheeled it out the back doors, down a couple of long, wide steps and into the van, and away we went. And you could actually see the police station from the back of Woolies as well.
See, I've been doing this kind of radio on and off for about 30 years, all right? I have to say, you are one of my top 10 callers, because this is worth its weight in gold. So this was London in the 1970s. This was a Woolworths. And you and someone else you won't name, because his name is quite unique, and you might incriminate him. And hopefully, I'll just check with our lawyers. I don't think we have incriminated you. Well, if you have, it's yourself, so you're on your own. You went to Woolies. You let off a red flare that acted as basically a distraction to the security guard who went, oh, better get all of the customers out, doing his job. The place was evacuated. And then, you and your mate did you say you put a sack over the washing machine and put it on a trolley?
No, we had a sack barrow, a trolley.
Oh, got you.
A two-wheel trolley.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everyone panicked, obviously. You don't see a red smoke flare in Woolies very often.
Yeah.
And the busy side was the high street side. The quiet side was the little road at the back. And, the security guard ushered everyone out the front door. People were running and panicking, and we took the washing machine, put it in a van.
John, this is great. Thank you for calling us. The final question has to be, well, there might be two questions. Where did the washing machine go?
To my friend's mum's house.
And is it still there?
Unfortunately, she's died now, but the washing machine, I left London a long time ago, but the washing machine was still there when I left.
I appreciate you calling up, my friend. John in Rutland, thank you. See, that's the beauty of the kind of stuff we do here. If you're listening to Talk at the moment, if you're watching on your smart device or on YouTube or whatever, you have just heard how it is possible to steal a washing machine. This is Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Duncan Barkes in for Peter Cardwell on this Saturday morning. It is Talk. I owe you an apology if you've been kind enough to send a message in, because I've been a little bit tardy in reading them out. It's just, there's been a lot going on here. We had a couple of cracking guests in the last hour, got a little bit tasty in places. If you missed it, catch up using the Talk app or go back and look at YouTube. And also, we had a lesson on how to nick a washing machine out of Woolworths in 1970s London. Don't try it at home. Some of your messages coming in. 87222 starts your message with the word talk. 0344 499 1000 for your calls. I'd love to talk to a few more folk this morning. You can WhatsApp that number and you can voice note that number as well. Messages coming in. This is Jen, who's in Wolverhampton, who says, Duncan, I agree with you. I would do anything to get this horrendous government out. I'm probably going to defect to Reform myself because my only hope was for Jenrick to become Conservative leader. I've been a Tory all of my life, but now they are Lib Dems under the Conservative name. I blame the 2010 coalition, says Jen. You see, I used to take the view, Jen, that that was just a very good line trotted out by people on the right of the political spectrum. So people like Rupert Lowe, who we talked about earlier, certainly Nigel Farage, that this kind of like, oh, they're all Lib Dems. It's just a very clever campaigning tactic. However, I did hear Buckland on Mark Dolan's show yesterday morning when I was driving in here to do a show yesterday, and he made it very clear that, you know, when it comes to the ECHR, he doesn't believe that we should come out of it or stop being a signatory to it. But yeah, there are people in his party, including his leader, who go, well, I've got the legal basis of how we do it. And until they come together on stuff like that, they're always going to remain a divided party. And frankly, there are people in the Tories who'd be better off having tea and crumpets with Sir Ed Davey. Jen, thank you very much for that. Elsewhere, this is Sally, who says, you haven't got it wrong, Duncan. Makes a change. I would also die in that ditch you keep talking about. Anything to keep Labour outside for a second term. I didn't much care for the cut of that reform chap's jib. Well, Alex did struggle a bit with the technology earlier. So, Alex, if you're still watching and listening, I appreciate you coming on, but we had to get rid of you because the tech didn't work. But I don't know quite what he said, Sally, that you didn't like. I thought he was a bit arrogant and a bit aggressive. If the parties on the right are not prepared, you unite to keep Labour out. They are absolutely not putting the country before their own egos, says Sally. It is my concern, and this is not having a pop at anyone, because I know people get a little bit upset if I have a pop at, and I don't have a pop, I just put forward different viewpoints, if I have a pop at certain politicians. But there is a very big chance that if the right of the political spectrum in this country can't find a way of working together, you will end up with a second socialist government running this country. That's if there's a country left to run. I'll do a few more here, then we'll do a call, then we'll do some voice notes. Who's this? This is from Dan, who says, Jacob Rees-Mogg is the one who all the right side of the Tories are waiting for. Over 3 years yet, Duncan, but predict closer to the election, it won't just be the Tories bailing out the uni party, it'll be Labour MPs who go to Green. I think you're likely. And one more here about washing machines. This is Martin, who says the way people nick washing machines is usually straight out the back of the delivery van, or they just take the van, says Martin. Right, let's take a call. This is Grace. Good morning.
Hi, I haven't spoken to you for years. It's good to talk to you.
No, I went away and retrained as a priest, didn't like it, and decided to come back to radio. How are you?
I'm very blessed, thank you. Are you having a good New Year so far?
Yeah, I'm enjoying myself, thank you. What are your thoughts this morning, Grace?
Various things. I think our country perhaps is a bit broken, but I don't think that the primary problem is people with different pigmentation levels. I mean, honestly, people's pigmentation levels just don't actually affect us. They really don't. I know people have expressed concern, but they really don't cause a problem. What matters...
Well, hang on, let me just pick that over and make sure I've understood it. You say that immigration levels don't impact on Britain being broken?
No, I didn't say that. I said people's pigmentation levels.
Oh, pigmentation, sorry, OK.
Yeah, so if people are saying, well, I haven't seen any other white people, that in itself is not necessarily an issue. What is an issue...
Well, that's what Robert Jenrick said famously, didn't he, in part of Birmingham. He said, I never saw a white face.
Right, but maybe the white people should go and visit that area. No one's stopping them, I wouldn't imagine. But I think that what does matter in our country and what has, I think, regressed is our values to some extent. And this crossed my mind the other day when I heard that Robert Jenrick just flat out lied when the Tory whip called him to ask about whether he was going to defect. He said he wasn't, and then he did a few hours later. And I think we need to think actually about what values people, and particularly our leaders, but also we ourselves have, and not just whether people coming in from elsewhere are not like us. I can see that can be a concern, but we might like to think that all the problems from the world just come out from outside, but actually we can have our own, flaws, and we've got leaders who are doing concerning things. It's not just a problem of immigration. I mean, the Reform Party keeps saying we need to go back to Christian values. Now, the foremost Christian value is to repentantly follow Jesus, but also to be honest, to be compassionate. And so losing those things in our society, I think our society has become more selfish. I look at the junior doctor strike, for example, and I think we just normalised selfishness. I think that's the main reason our country is broken.
Yeah, I mean, Reform will make the point, and I have a great deal of sympathy with this view, which is they say Britain is broken. It's a great campaigning slogan, all right? If you're fed up with all kinds of things in this country, you can't get your GP appointment for 6 weeks, your trains don't turn up on time, and your kids' school's rubbish, right? It's great to buy into that frustration and say Britain is broken. We'll also make the point, and this is the point where I think they're onto something, when you talk about small boat crossings, for example, and the fact that not just this government, but the previous government couldn't get a proper grip on it, that kind of suggests that Britain is broken. We can't even protect our own borders.
There's definitely serious difficulties with some of the infrastructure and governance. I think one of the things that sticks out to me is that more and more taxpayer money is in the hands of private contractors who are creaming off profits for their shareholders and doing things as cheaply as possible. So, for instance, with the immigration system, a lot of the money ends up with various middlemen and contractors who book the places in hotels. Yeah. A lot of the taxpayers' money is going to them, and that's happening throughout different systems within the country. And I think that's part of the reason.
Well, you're right. A lot of things are outsourced to various logistic companies. There are companies like Serco who have government contracts and many others as well. But I mean, if we try to do everything in-house in terms of not outsourcing to private providers, do you honestly think it would be better?
It's hard for me to say because I've not lived in that kind of situation, but I think ultimately it's going to come down, again, to values, and are people trying to do the best that they can for society, or are they just thinking about themselves? And I think our culture, I look at some of our television programmes, and it's like the underlying message is that you should do what you want to do. That's like the moral of the story in those of our media, and that's what's changed and made a lot of things worse.
I think you're onto something there. It's that. You must do what you want to do. And also, let me tell you about your journey. God, I'm sick and tired of hearing people's journeys. I'm not interested in your journey from one point of your life to another. Grace, a pleasure to talk to you again. Thank you. That's Grace in London, 0344 499 1000. Just so you're clear, Grace called to talk about Britain being broken. And this is something else I'm keen to get your reaction to this morning. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, she says Britain is not broken. We know Reform UK chant that, quite literally, Britain is broken. What is your experience of that? Do you think it is? I mean, I've written a piece for the Daily Express newspaper. It appears on Monday. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I still like good old-fashioned newspapers. It'll be online and in the paper on Monday. And it's about the water companies in this country, all right? And it just picks up on something that Grace said about the private sector doing certain things. And, you know, there's been a massive nightmare in places like Kent and Sussex under South East water supplies being disrupted, not being reconnected. They're private companies. So I'm floating the idea whether or not it's time to renationalise certain things in this country. I only mention that to you because if you believe that Britain is broken and you feel that the water companies aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and that's part of the broken problem, you know, how do we fix it? So we can have that conversation as well this morning. 0344 499 1000. Bit of chat about shoplifting. A big old tick there. Thank you to John earlier, who told us how to nick a washing machine from Woolworths, because he's actually done it. If you missed that, catch up on the Talk app or indeed on YouTube. But how bad is shoplifting in your neighbourhood? And a bit of chat about the Conservative Party and what does the future hold for the Tories. 0344 499 1000. We've got a chunk of voice notes coming in. Let's get them on the air. This is Karen.
Hi, Duncan. No, I don't think that any more defections from the Conservative Party would do Reform any favours, to be honest. This is not what Reform voters wanted. We wanted something different. We were supposed to be different. We were supposed to be a fresh, radical voice. And all we're getting is the same old guard. We don't want it. We've had enough. You know, we're going to start looking at Reform. It's going to look like the old Conservative Party. I'm sorry, and there might be some really good people in there, but the Nadam Zahawi defection didn't go down well, and neither did the Jenrick one, because he can't be trusted either. I'm sick and tired of seeing politicians that have lied to our faces, that have decimated this country over the last 14 years and did absolutely nothing. Until the whole system changes in the government, nothing's going to get done anyway. So, but we're not going to be the retirement home for old Tory or Labour, for that matter. We certainly don't want any Labour MPs in Reform. And you know what? He's walking a very tight line, Nigel Farage, and his ego's just getting the better of him. He needs to watch it.
Karen, thank you for your voice notes. Some interesting stuff there. First off, don't keep saying sorry. You don't need to apologise for having an opinion. It's what this radio station is all about. It's what talk is all about. So thank you for your voice notes. Secondly, I think you raise a really decent point, which is, and I heard about this yesterday when I was covering the 10 a.m. show as well, which there is a concern, particularly with the membership, I suspect also within some of the upper echelons of Reform UK, but definitely the membership, where they put their support behind Reform UK because they see it as this insurgent party, this fresh party, an alternative to all of the others, almost anti-establishment. And then what you're seeing are people joining that party from another party that a lot of people hold in contempt. So the concern is, it's just like, well, this is just going to be another version of the Tory party. And if you are Nigel Farage, you're in a really difficult position, aren't you? Because what you want is, you want the talent in your party. That's if you believe that certain defectors have a great deal of political talent. But you want that talent in your party because they have this experience of government. Right, and that's one of the attack lines used against Reform UK by all of the opposition parties, which is, you've never run anything, right? You don't know how to run a government department because you've never been in government. So in order to kind of sort that out, you can understand Farage just going, well, we'll just bring in some people who've got governmental experience. I mean, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But the problem with that is you end up including people who are in the last administration that a lot of people have gone to Reform for because they didn't like the last administration. And that's before you get into what we would call the optics of spending a lot of campaigning, if you're Nigel Farage, having a pop at the Conservatives, saying they're responsible for everything, saying you want to destroy them, and then welcoming with open arms people who used to be part of that party. It is a tough one. Karen, thank you. This is Carl.
Mary, I've just been listening to your guest say that Jenrick going over to Reform has weakened Reform. I can't believe what I'm hearing. What is she going on about? Weakened it? The membership's gone up 3,000 in just over a day. Everybody I've seen on all the forums is saying how fantastic it is. Weakened it? I'm sorry, I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life. It's strengthened it massively. Cheers.
All right, I'll give you a very quick view and we'll do one more voice note, and it's quite simply this. My concern is Jenrick has an ego. Jenrick has political ambitions, and I think he may be the cause of infighting within Reform UK, and that is not good for that party. One more. This is Gav.
It's John in Suffolk here. Look, I've been incensed with one of your speakers there, so especially talking about Afghanistan. As any soldier who's walked the grounds outside the war in Afghanistan will tell you, that the culture of people there is very different to what it is in the UK. It's not uncommon for those families to have a son in the ANA, another in the AMP, and another in the Taliban. Also, most of the people that come into the UK are either people who fought in the ANA, potentially, or sons of, and they're from the northern tribes, mainly Dari speakers, not Pashtuns. Let's just finish on this. Why are they coming to the UK? There's been a massive growth in the number of cash wire transfer facilities in the UK at the moment. Whilst you and I would have to prove where our funds come from if we spend more than £3,000, people walk into those facilities day on day. Now, I've got a friend who works for one of these cash collection companies that turn up with the armoured cars. They will tell you where the most amount of cash they're collecting on a daily basis comes from. That's it. It's not a good outlook.
Gav, appreciate your voice note. Thank you. Nothing in there I could disagree with. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes. You can WhatsApp us on that number or call us. Listen, after midday, I want to get as many of your calls on air as possible. So if you're at home at the moment or in the car and it's legal to do so and safe or whatever, if you've listened to some of the stuff we've been chewing over and you've got some thoughts on what you want to say, give us a call now and we'll definitely get you on after midday. 0344 499 1000. What does the future of the Conservative Party look like? Also, when we talk about the latest defection to Reform UK, is there a potential, with yet another Conservative joining, that they become Tory Party Mark II? That's a concern of Karen, who sent us a voice note. And also shoplifting. How bad is it in your neighbourhood? How bad is it in your town? 0344 499 1000. I want more of your calls and messages to that number as well, and also your voice notes. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Saturday morning. Thank you for choosing Talk. On this Saturday morning, I'm Duncan Barkes, taking care of business for Peter Cardwell. I'm here through until midday. Still keep sending your messages in and your voice notes and your WhatsApps about all of the things we're talking about, and your calls as well, 0344 499 1000. Let's welcome to the show this morning Councillor Alex Yip, who's a councillor at Birmingham City Council. Hello.
Good morning, Duncan.
Thank you for your time on this Saturday morning. So many things to chew over and get your views on. The big story coming out of your part of the country that's got a lot of reaction from many of our listeners and viewers is regarding the police chief, Craig Guilford, who, well, rather splendidly yesterday announced that he's going to retire.
Yes.
Morning, that he's planning to sue for constructive dismissal after he retired yesterday, following this, the only word I can use is fiasco. I'd like to use a stronger set of words, following the Maccabi Tel Aviv fiasco. What's your take on his conduct over the last few days?
I think good luck to him if he wants to try and sue for misconduct, because in my view, he's repeatedly misled Parliament, he's distorted evidence, he's misled the Birmingham community, he's been a disgrace to his uniform. And in my view, everything that he's done is tantamount to gross misconduct and merits a formal investigation. And it's quite striking, really, that the Labour Police Crime Commissioner has been saying that he's done the honourable thing by retiring.
Yeah.
It's absolutely shown his weakness when actually he should have stood up against him and actually called an investigation into his actions.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So this is the Police Crime Commissioner for the area. This is Simon Foster, isn't it?
Yes.
Who is a Labour Police Crime Commissioner who has had the power to sack him. So even the Home Secretary doesn't have the power to get rid of someone like this. It's only the PCC who's able to go, mate, Here's your P45. And he, despite overwhelming evidence of this man not being fit for purpose, didn't decide to actually sack this bloke. Why do you think this is, or why was it?
Absolutely. And it's the Labour Home Office Secretary who actually even said that it's been a cataloguing of failures, that she's had no confidence in him. But it is absolutely the Labour Police Crime Commissioner who's shown how weak he is. Because if the Chief Constable was responsible for this disgraceful banning of Jewish fans and a cover-up of intelligence relating to an allegation of armed gangs in our city, threatening violence on another community, then he should have been fired. And if it wasn't that, then he should have taken action to investigate these groups of people who are alleging violence against another group, because his role should be keeping our community safe. In the end, though, it has shown that it is the Labour Party which is more interested in trying to protect their own brand than keeping the city safe. And this is even when you've got, as you said, the Labour Police Crime Commissioner, the Labour Home Office, Home Secretary saying there's been a catalogue of failures. We demand an investigation because ultimately Birmingham does deserve better.
Would you say that this particular police crime commissioner is guilty of overseeing two-tier policing?
I think there's been a lot that needs to be looked into, especially in terms of his gross misconduct, misleading the community. It is an allegation which he said he's had to be recalled to Parliament, as you know, to give further evidence because he has misled it. And it is around how he is treating perhaps one section of the community more favourably than another. And it is this lack of an investigation which very much needs to be called out. And I'm hoping that the pressure which shows like yourself are placing on his decision to retire as opposed to a gross misconduct investigation will put pressure excuse me, on him to actually do the right thing and for people to properly launch a full investigation.
Right. And before we move on to some more wider political issues, I'm keen to get your thoughts. I wrote a piece recently for a newspaper about the bin strikes in Birmingham going into its second year, which I find genuinely staggering. I mean, and my hook for that is January of last year when we started to see work to rule, which is a form of industrial action by refuse collectors. We've just turned the first anniversary of industrial action of bin collectors, for want of a better phrase, in Birmingham. You're a representative of the City Council. You must be banging your head against a brick wall over this.
Yes, it is incredibly frustrating. So we've seen 1 year now of strikes. We've also seen a repetition. They're restarting again. They've started more union action. The depots are being blocked. And it is staggering because it's cost the city around £19 million just for the year alone in terms of extra agency. And
well, let me interrupt you there. As someone who is a firm supporter of taxpayers, you use the term it's cost the city. It has cost taxpayers that amount of money, right?
Absolutely. It has cost taxpayers who paid into the system and have had no choice but to pay into the system. This money has been wasted, £19 million. And what we're also seeing is that the Labour administration are not engaging with the unions. So, of course, the unions are on strike. We need the leader to step up and actually have a conversation with them on how to end the strike. And they're actually not having that conversation, leaving residents in the lurch.
I was amused but also massively depressed to read that the chap who's got the portfolio on your council for environment and refuse collection said he didn't think the strike had remotely dented the image of Birmingham. What planet is he living on?
Yes, it is utterly delusional. And to think that he holds the portfolio for bins as well as the portfolio for roads, the two largest portfolios this one person holds. There's no way that this Labour administration in the city over the past 14 years constantly blames other people, other issues, instead of taking responsibility of their role over the past 14 years for equal pay, for the bankrupting the largest authority in Europe, £750 million in asset sales that they need to find. It is a staggering situation. You know about the athletes' village during the Commonwealth Games that didn't house a single athlete. The list goes on. The waste within the city, as you say, taxpayers' money is absolutely astronomical.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we talk about accountability, we had Graham Stringer on in the first hour of the show, Labour MP, and we were talking about Craig Guilford, and we talked about how, you know, there was a time when people in public service, to be blunt, they cocked it up, they put their hands up, and it was a bad enough mistake, they would resign. We didn't say it with Craig Guilford. We've not seen any resignations, to my knowledge, of Birmingham City Council of this bin strike entering its second year. I mean, people in public office, it seems to me these days, have lost the ability to go, do you know what, I've got it wrong, I need to go.
I completely agree. And it's really frustrating that the current leader, Councillor John Cotton, says that he had no understanding of the scale of the issue, when he's been in the cabinet since 2012. I think he was first in the cabinet in 2012, and yet he still claims that he has no understanding. He claims he's going to have openness and transparency, and yet then he refuses to back our calls for public inquiry into how the largest authority, excuse me, in Europe has gone bankrupt. It is a staggering lack of accountability and transparency in the city.
Alex, stay where you are for a second. I've got some breaking news I just need to share with our viewers and listeners. We're talking to Councillor Alex Yip, who's a Conservative councillor, a Birmingham City councillor. You may have heard last night there were some protests outside the Iranian embassy in London. The Met Police have told us inside the last few minutes that 4 police officers suffered minor injuries and 14 people were arrested on suspicion of offences including violent disorder and trespass after a protest at the Iranian embassy in London yesterday evening. That's the latest from the Met Police. Alex, let's turn our attention to more national issues outside of Birmingham. You're a Conservative councillor. You're on Birmingham City Council. Your reaction to Robert Jenrick, one of the Conservatives joining Reform UK. What did you make of the news when you first heard it?
Well, I'm very happy he gave me the opportunity to speak on this because I've been absolutely livid. I've met Rob several times. Obviously, he spoke very disparagingly about my city earlier, and a lot of us rose to his defence. What I'm saying to Reform is good luck to them, because they are fast becoming a party of people who have personal political ambitions. They have been traitors to people who have loyally served them.
I'm going to interrupt you, only not because I want to interrupt you, but every political party is rammed full of people who have political ambitions, right? You can't just level that against Reform UK.
Well, it's personal ambitions in terms of he wanted to be a Prime Minister. He's obviously had designs on the leader for the Conservatives, but there were a lot of members and people who fundraised and supported him and leafleted for him as a Conservative who got him in post. And now, because it is not useful to him, because of course Kem is rising in the polls, she's doing very well in Prime Minister's questions, he sees his chances of becoming the next leader, the next Prime Minister, whatever, has diminished. So obviously he's looking to move over to Reform to benefit his own career. And we've seen that over and over again. Naheem Zahawi, obviously, I've met him several times, had a lot of respect for him, and they're on different spectrums within the Conservative Party, but yet he was denied a peerage, and because of that, he's also defected over to Reform. So we're seeing this over and over again. Reform are fast becoming a party of, I think you earlier, caller Karen was saying quite eloquently that this fast becoming a party of political has-beens plead to her personal ambitions as opposed to public service and duty for the nation. And we're seeing Greens possibly defecting. We're seeing the Labour MP rumours of them defecting. So good luck to them. Reform will quickly become a basket case while the Conservatives are getting their act together. We've been strengthened by this. We're seeing actually how we're treating people who are traitors with resolve. And I'm liking what we're seeing within Conservatives and move on towards May for the local elections.
Yeah, but you can't ignore the fact that Robert Jenrick, who has a little bit of public visibility, I mean, some people will know who he is, has decided that the Tories are bust, the game is over, he's joined Reform UK. That does send out a certain message, particularly to Conservative Party members who might have voted for him in the leadership contest to become leader.
Absolutely, and he has a very strong public profile. And in that profile, he said very disparaging words to Nigel Farage. He's also up to a few hours when he was called by the Chief Whip. He strongly and strenuously denied that he was ever going to defect. He's repeatedly said to us in events and dinners that you've got to show loyalty to the Conservative Party, that he's had no thoughts of defecting. And lo and behold, he's been in conversations for months. So if this is the type of person that you want in Reform, then you're welcome to him. What I'm saying is Nigel should watch his back.
Yeah, and I have sympathy with that view because as someone who's politically right of centre, I'm more than happy to put that on the record, and as someone who has known Nigel Farage for about 16 years, and as someone who has been genuinely amazed by the rise of Reform, and you can't ignore it, you and I, despite you're in a different party to Reform UK, you've got to acknowledge he's one of our most effective and successful campaigners of the 21st century, right? If not one of the most successful politicians of the 21st century. But my concern would be when you bring in a character like Jenrick, who I think has shown his true colours over the last 48 hours. You know, he didn't even have the balls to phone up the chairman of his Conservative Association and say, hello, mate, thanks for all the work you've done. I'm off and these are my reasons. You know, the guy didn't know. That shows massive amount of contempt to people who have worked for you and the people who put the leaflets through, you know, the doors at a weekend to campaign on your behalf and stuff like that. My concern is you've got that ego now within Reform UK, and actually that could damage the party quite significantly in terms of someone who's clearly ambitious and ruin the harmony, the upper echelons of that party. But I don't expect you to comment on that. So
just quickly, I think it's also the integrity of people that you're bringing on board. So if he's in the shadow cabinet meeting and he's taking all these notes and he's lying to his colleagues, and the very next moment he is doing this. This is why people don't have any respect or integrity for their politicians now, because people are being like this. And if Reform's taking people like this on board, they really have to be careful about what they're doing to their own brand, as your caller earlier said.
All right, really enjoyed our conversation. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Councillor Alex Yip, who's a Conservative councillor at Birmingham City Council. I'm Duncan Barkes. It's a Saturday morning. This is Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, we'll take some more calls in a few moments' time, and your voice notes, and a stack of messages coming in. 87222, the text number. Start your message with the word talk. 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes, and your WhatsApp messages. Quite a presumptuous message here from Chris Butler in Wallasey. If you would die in a ditch, Duncan, to stop another socialist government, then vote Reform. However, you won't, so stop talking nonsense. It's not me who's talking nonsense. Elsewhere, this is Martin, who's in Cambridgeshire, who says Britain, not Britain, may not be completely broken, but there are certainly some serious cracks, not least the leader and his motley crew. The biggest problem we face is the lefty way of thinking or not thinking, maybe being a better description. The flood of illegals may not be the entire reason for so much disillusionment, but it affects every one of us, from services that are not fit for purpose to increased taxes, hard to get appointments, and of course the surge in crime. I think Robert Jenrick will be an asset to Reform and a huge problem for the Tories. It is all very well the Tories telling us that they are the only party with the answers, but if that were true, why did they not do something when they had the opportunity? As for Labour, they are just a corrupt, bad joke. Says Martin. Well, this is the point that people put to the Conservatives, and it's a genuine and justified point, which is, you bang on about all of this stuff now. You had 14 years to sort it out. And I just don't know how they square that circle. I really don't. I mean, they'll come out and they'll just tell you things have changed, lessons have been learned, but have they? It's very hard to say. And I'll do one more here, then we'll talk to Phil. Should we do a fridge message? Let's do a fridge message. We've been talking about shoplifting and the figures for London. that show that people have been nicking sunglasses, sinks, disposable vapes and 15 washing machines were stolen in 2025 alone. So I threw out this question: how do you nick a washing machine and get away with it? We had a great call earlier. If you missed it, go to the app and catch up on YouTube. This is from someone who is anonymous. He says, Duncan is on about nicking a fridge. I was a member of a working man's club years ago, and one weekend 2 guys turned up wearing white lab coats, said they'd come to replace the one-armed bandit with a much more updated gambling machine. Wheeled it out on a sack barrow, complete with all the cash in it, into the back of a van and drove away, never to be seen again. There was no machine. Phil is in Thailand. Hello, Phil.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yes, I shouldn't have an opinion, really, because I do live in Thailand and I've been here for many years. But I do watch politics, and you always keep up with your home country.
Yeah.
But I really do think that Nigel is on a wrong one here with that generic, and especially that Nadine Dorries. I think she's trouble. I really do.
Well, that's an interesting charge. Well, I mean, let's talk about Nadine Dorries. She was a big Boris Johnson supporter, defected to Reform UK on the eve of their conference last year in Birmingham. Why is she trouble in your view?
I think so, because the first kind of speech or talk that she had when she got into Reform was, you've got to bring Boris Johnson into Reform and everything. She's totally... I think she's poisoned, Duncan. I really do. And I don't think Jenrick is a truly loyal person. And I think Nigel really should watch his back.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I mean, from what we've seen regarding Jenrick in the last couple of days, you wouldn't trust him with a barge pole, would you? And that's before what I've seen and heard in the past regarding him and his journey and his so-called conversion in the last few years. Phil, enjoyed Thailand. Wish I was there, I think. This is David, who's in Coventry. Hello, David.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. What would you like to say, sir?
Your Conservative councillor was slagging off Reform, etc., and bigging up the Conservatives. I'm afraid Kemi Badenoch shot herself completely in the head, not let alone the foot, yesterday, when she said Britain is not broken. I mean, what planet is the woman living on?
Okay, well, I can't answer that. She's not here to answer. You tell me why you think it's broken.
Well, the Tories had 14 years.
Yeah.
My question for anybody, and I'm really looking forward to my Conservative candidate coming around before the next election, general election, because he's going to get both barrels, he or she. My question would be very simple. Give me one promise that the Tories made, any Tory politician made, on immigration during the 14 years that they kept.
Yeah.
There isn't one. Every single promise they made about reducing the immigration to the tens of thousands, through to we're going to close the borders from Boris again and again and again. Every single one was broken. Why would anybody believe they've changed? Because the same people are behind the scenes now, and the biggest problem the Conservatives have is their selection of candidates for MP. It's done by a small committee in Conservative Central Office, and they choose Liberal Democrat type people to be their candidates, and then they parachute them into constituencies. They did it to my constituency at the last election. They took away, the first thing David Cameron did when he became leader was take away the right of local constituencies to select their own MPs.
He did.
That was anti-democratic. That was what the Communist Labour Party did a few years before.
You mean the associations? He took away the right of the associations?
From the associations, yeah, because then the local people don't get a choice because they choose the wrong people.
Yeah, and what happens is you expect volunteers, political volunteers, who a lot of people forget, let's just put the politics in terms of parties to one side. This is right across the spectrum. A lot of these MPs would never be elected if it wasn't for their local supporters and the local party who, look out the window on a Saturday morning, it's tipping it down, they still go out with their bag full of leaflets and stick them through letterboxes. And I never understood why David Cameron ignored that because that is a commitment from local members, and decided that he knew better, you're going to have this person as a candidate. I know why he did it, but I think it shows a massive lack of understanding as to the importance of local people who support local parties.
It shows a complete lack of political intelligence.
It's also contemptuous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's contemptuous of the people. I know during Brexit, Boris came into Coventry and he completely ignored the people on the stalls. He wasn't interested in us. When the TV cameras are there, he's great. Oh, he's to the front. He's Mr. Nice Guy. He's Mr. Funny. He's all sorts. But then when he became Prime Minister, you realised very quickly how totally out of depth the man is. He thinks he's Winston Churchill. He's not fit to polish Winston Churchill's shoes. Quite simply.
I mean, I think many people were taken in by the Boris Johnson Act. I mean, I could talk for hours about what I've seen and heard over the years. It's been a pleasure, David. Thank you for giving us a call. It's David in Coventry, 0344 499 1000. Give us a shout. We've got room. We'll get you on between midday and midday. Voice note me to that number as well. WhatsApp me. And you can also call. Text coming to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. A bit of chat going on here about the rise in shoplifting. We have the latest figures for London. Washing machines are being stolen. But on a more serious note, tell me, how bad is it in your neighbourhood? Also some political chat. What does the future look like for the Conservative Party? We've had some great messages and great calls on that as well. 0344 499 1000, the number. And after midday, we'll talk to Danny Shaw, policing crime and justice commentator. We'll talk about shoplifting and a whole lot more. Saturday morning becomes Saturday afternoon. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, Saturday afternoon. I'm Duncan Barkes in for Peter Cardwell through until 12:30. Good to have you along. It's the home of common sense. It's Talk on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on YouTube, and also your connected device. 0344 499 1000. You want to pick up on anything we're chewing over this afternoon? I'd love to get your voice on the air, but happy to take your messages as well via WhatsApp or voice notes. And if you're a little bit old school, maybe you've got a battered old Nokia, 87222 is the mobile number if you want to text, but you've got to start your message with the word talk. Otherwise, it just goes off somewhere into the ether. Many bits of reaction, many calls about the future of the Conservative Party so far on the show, asking you what it looks like, as there is a list of 11 Conservative MPs on so-called defection watch. I might go through the list a little bit later on, but I mean, you know, there's a concern that now Robert Jenrick's gone, others might follow suit. What do you think the future of the Tories looks like? Keen to get your thoughts on that. And also, we're talking about shoplifting as well. I'm really keen to understand, wherever you might be listening or watching to me this afternoon, what's it like in your neighbourhood when we talk about shoplifting? Because we have figures here for London for 2025. Now, these are only the recorded figures, so this is the stuff that we know about. You can quite easily make the argument that the figure might be higher. But this is out of the capital. The Met Police figures saying that over 90,000 offences have been recorded. It's up from a couple of years before that. But what really leapt out to me is the stuff that's being nicked. Police records show that 860 pairs of sunglasses have been stolen, 735 toys, 219 bags of pet food, 194 toothbrushes and 15 washing machines were stolen from shops in the capital during 2025. We've had a bit of humour around the washing machine. We had a caller earlier who explained to us how he actually stole a washing machine from Woolworths in the 1970s. Obviously, he doesn't suggest anyone else does that. If you missed that, go back and listen via the app, the Talk app, or indeed via YouTube. But I want to get to the bottom of how bad it is in your neighbourhood. And I'll tell you, in fact, I'll show you some pictures shortly about my local convenience store, which now has sausages in a Perspex box with a GPS tracker attached to stop people nicking them. So we know shoplifting's getting worse, certainly appears to be the case. Shops are taking more and more precautions. What's it like in your part of town? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's get a view on this. Danny Shaw is a policing, crime and justice commentator, former advisor to Yvette Cooper, and he joins us this afternoon on Talk. Hello, Dan.
Good afternoon, Duncan. Hi.
Good to have you on the show. What's your initial reaction to these shoplifting figures?
Well, they're really concerning figures. I mean, shop theft is something I think has taken everyone by surprise. The surge in it over the past few years, not just in London, but also in other parts of the country. Yeah. Essentially, the number of offences has more than doubled in about 2 years, and it looks like it's going to be another record this year, up to potentially 90,000 or something like that for 2025 on current trends when we get the data later on. It's a real concern, and it is, I think, as one police and crime commissioner has said, a gateway offence, because once you make it easy for criminals to steal things from shops, they'll do it more, and then they might get into criminality and get into selling those goods on. That brings them into the world of crime, and they might try and commit other offences as well. This is something, it's too late to nip it in the bud, because unfortunately, this is an offence that's blooming, but the Met has really got to grip this year. It's absolutely essential.
You make a really interesting point. Yeah, and there's the police crime commissioner who made the point as well. And I can't remember who the New York mayor was back in the 80s. You might remember, because you're probably more informed than me. But he talked about the broken window philosophy, which is, in a neighbourhood, if you tolerate someone smashing a window, then people think they can get away with that, and they kind of it then elevates to greater crime. Same with graffiti, etc. And he took the view, I want to say it's de Blasio, but I don't know if that's right. I need to look it up. He took the view that if you tackle low-level crime, it stops greater crimes being committed further down the line. And I think you're onto something. If the view is someone's just nicked a Mars bar, who cares? That person is going to be more emboldened in the future, aren't they? To think, well, I've done the Mars bar, I might as well go for that bottle of white wine.
Or a washing machine, indeed. The jokes about money laundering and so on, sort of come into play there, don't they? But I mean, it's extraordinary. Look, I think what needs to happen is that the Met needs to look at some other police forces that have actually got much better arrest rates and are driving down shoplifting, like Norfolk. And it's to do with partnership working between the retailers and the police, so that there's better intelligence sharing. I think there has to be a sort of a ramping up of facial recognition. It's being used, in some parts of London. No other forces are doing it. It can be a very effective, I think, deterrent when thieves understand that as soon as they go past the cameras, they're going to be spotted, they're going to be stopped from entering particular stores. You've basically got to make the environment for thieves much more hostile. You've got to make
I know, but I'm sorry to interrupt you. The facial recognition technology thing is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it means all of us have to actually have our civil liberties infringed if we go, that is the answer, because it treats everyone effectively like a criminal. I mean, that's what organisations like Big Brother Watch say. But that's what they say, isn't it? It's just more data being recorded about theoretically innocent people. Can we trust those people with the data? That's the counter-argument.
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid that the arguments around that have been hijacked by Big Brother Watch and other campaign groups. The fact is, this is a very effective intelligence tool, and that as soon as you walk past the camera, Duncan, if you're not on the watch list, your data, your biometric data, will be wiped within seconds. It's not interested in you. It's interested in people on the watch list of known offenders or wanted suspects, people who haven't appeared in court, who need to appear in court, people like that. They're on the watch list. Essentially, the cameras will flag if one of those people who resembles someone looking like that walks past, and then a police officer will approach that person to check the identity. The technology is incredibly accurate now, very, very accurate. There are very few false positives. It's a really good piece of technology, and it's much better than having a police officer walking around looking to spot someone who's wanted. Much more accurate and much more time efficient than that. That's why it's being extended and being rolled out. And I predict that within 5 or 10 years, we won't be having these debates anymore. It will be as accepted as CCTV and DNA is now.
Just on the record, because I don't like giving out duff information, I talked about this broken window strategy whilst you were explaining or defending the use of facial recognition technology. That's not a criticism, by the way, Dan. I looked it up. It's the New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani who implemented the broken window theory under the police
Bill
commission.
Bratton.
That was it, William Bratton, yeah. So there you are. All right, so you think ultimately then, given the rise in technology and facial recognition technology, ultimately shoplifting, may well become a thing of the past?
No, I don't think it's going to become a thing of the past. You're always going to get a level of shop theft. I think what has to happen is you've got to see a reversal in the numbers. You've got to see more shop thieves being prosecuted, or at the very least being given a caution, and just life being made difficult for them, so they don't realise they can just get away with it, which is what's happening at the moment. Of course, criminals are always going to try and find ways around things. There will be a level of shop theft, but at the moment it's become a fashion almost. It's become something that people feel that they can just get away with. And there are some examples of forces that are doing some good work. And I do think Katie Bourne in Sussex, the Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner, has done some good work with businesses there, some effective evidence gathering, sharing of intelligence to try and deter shop thieves. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be happening in the Met. I mean, it's interesting to say, look, this is in the context of a debate about crime in London and how safe London is. There is no doubt that in terms of, serious violence, homicides, stabbings and so on, there have been some real progress made in London in the last few years. You can't deny those figures, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other crime types that are causing huge concerns, such as shop theft, such as robberies, such as thefts of mobile phones and so on. So I think people have got to be very careful when they say, oh, London's safe. Well, there's some good work in some areas, but there's a lot to do in others.
But it's all about how people feel, isn't it? And you're right. You're right. Absolutely, bang on the money to make the point. There's certainly homicides and stuff. Things. Figures are changing on whatever. And thankfully, most of us don't get to witness a stabbing. Okay, but plenty of us do get to witness someone's phone being nicked, or someone in a shop and they nick a packet of biscuits or a 4-pack of lager or whatever. And I have a degree of sympathy when it comes to people like police crime commissioners like Katie Bourne in Sussex, and indeed any other politicians, which is if the figures start to come down because they put in some good strategies in place or whatever, there is still this kind of feeling for some people that the country's not as safe as it used to be, because that's their feeling. It's an emotional response, isn't it? It's not a, if you like, a mental response looking at figures. And I just want to mention that, because given your role as the former advisor to Yvette Cooper, it must be really hard to try and get out those positive messages sometimes when people's default setting is, actually, I don't feel safe walking down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. You can talk about the crime figures all you like. You can say, oh, there's been a fall in burglary or homicides are down this year. It doesn't make any difference. It's what you feel actually in your neighbourhood that really counts. You know, do you feel safe, you know, walking to the end of your road, going to the park, in the high street near you at night? It's those things. And I think where the police can make a difference there is through greater visibility, which is why when I was working with Yvette Cooper in opposition, the plan was, the most important plan was to get more neighbourhood police officers and community support officers into local communities, because that was felt to make a real difference to people's sense of safety. And also it would help improve the intelligence flows between community and police, and it would also, you know, you'd also try and catch some people as well at the same time. So, and that is, to be fair to the Labour government, and I don't agree with everything they're doing, but they are actually bolstering the presence of police in neighbourhoods. I think 3,000 extra by the end of this year, and they're ring fencing funding for neighbourhood policing as well. I think that will make a difference, because that's what people feel. People, hopefully over time, may take 2, 3 or 4 years, will start to feel a bit safer walking around their neighbourhoods. You're right, statistics don't really make a difference to the way people feel.
Yeah, it certainly needs to happen, because I think people have the reassurance if they see a police officer or a couple of officers walking down the street. Listen, I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Danny. Danny Shaw, policing crime and justice commentator here on this Saturday afternoon at Talk, basically centred around shoplifting and the figures we have here for London, where there's a massive list of stuff that's been nicked throughout 2025. I'm going to say it again, including 15 washing machines. It's remarkable. How do you shoplift a washing machine? Your experience of shoplifting in your neighbourhood, what have you seen? 0344 499 1000. Well, have we still got the pictures of my local convenience store? We'll get to those in a few moments' time, because I want to show you. Well, there they are. Look at that. So that's the wine store in my local co-op in Chichester, and that's the meat fridge, where if you are listening and not watching via YouTube or the app, it's a packet of sausages in a Perspex box with a GPS tracker. All right, we're not talking, I'm going to say this bluntly, about some inner city crime wave. We are talking about genteel Chichester in West Sussex, where shoplifting is so bad they've had to put sausages in a Perspex box with a GPS tracker, and the wine you can't take off the shelf anymore. It's behind a locked cabinet. What the hell is going on? This is Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Duncan Barkes. This is Talk. It appears I've upset Honey in Swansea. Honey, I'm really sorry. Honey says, I'm annoyed by the London conversation going on at the moment. London is big. Which part of London are you talking about? I left London 20 years ago from East London because I was robbed by sleeping in my bed. Blimey. My children were mugged coming home from school regularly and I was attacked twice just going on the bus. You can imagine how dismayed I feel. More to see it following to Swansea thanks to the UK government's immigration policy. By the way, when you say London, please define the area. I can't because it's Met Office, not Met Office, that's the weather. It's the Met Police figures. So it's the Metropolitan Police talking about London as a whole when they talk about the shoplifting figures. So honey, I can't give you what you want. I'm sorry. I don't like disappointing. A few more messages here, then we'll do some voice notes and we'll talk to Dan. This is from 1599. Those are the last 4 digits of the mobile phone number. The figures are down on the back of nobody bothering to report crime now, as there is literally no point. Either it's not dealt with, or even when they do catch someone, they let them off or give them a slap on the wrist. And there was something else I just wanted to mention here. Oh yeah, Mark in Croydon. I'd say these figures are a third of what happens when we talk about shoplifting. At least 3 or 4 times a week I see people walk straight out of places like Sainsbury's and Greggs in the Croydon area. People treat these places like their own kitchen cupboards. Let's do some voice notes on the subject of Robert Jenrick's move to Reform UK. This is Pete.
Good morning, Duncan. Enjoying the show. Just wanted to make a point towards Robert Jenrick and reform. I think actually the strategy in place here, rather than there be a clash of egos and it causing infighting, I believe actually that Nigel, if he is voted in as Prime Minister and the Reform Party it gets its foothold as it should do, then I think the long-term successor for the Prime Minister's role would be Robert Jenrick. I think that maybe is what's at play here. I think that's a great strategic move. I can't see Nigel Farage wanting to be, a long-term Prime Minister. I think one session would be enough for him, and then it would be a strategic move to step aside and allow someone like Robert Jenrick to take that position. Interesting perspective, perhaps, different to what you're thinking, so I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. Okay, thanks. It's Peter from the South Coast.
Good to hear your voice, Pete. I think you're onto something. Look, I know Nigel a little bit. I've known him for 16 years. I don't think he'd want to be Prime Minister for a great deal of time. I think he'd rather be fishing. I also think you're bang on the money with Robert Jenrick. He's got an eye on being the future leader of Reform UK, and I think that is troublesome for the party, all right, because I think there are other people there who believe that if Nigel were to step down, they should be the next leader. And that's why I made the point earlier. This is not about... My concern is about Reform having infighting that means the party can't be as effective as many people want it to be to stop Starmer or his chums getting another bash at Downing Street. Pete, thank you. Talking about Conservative defections to Reform, this is Diane.
Hi. Regarding Conservative defections, Reform supporters are ex-Conservative or Labour who have switched allegiance for their own reasons. I have repeatedly said you don't grow new ones from seed. As to your views or apprehension on Jenrick and the like, they shape up or they ship out.
Diane, thank you for that. And we'll do one message on shoplifting and then we'll take some calls. This is Elle.
Regarding shoplifting, the nitties that do it, they're doing it to sell them to buy drugs. They're not doing it to eat the food. Don't be ridiculous. They don't do stuff like that. They're selling it for drugs.
Yeah, I think you're on to something. I mean, we had a guest in the studio earlier, Rachel from the IPPR think tank, who went through them in a little bit with some of the messages put to her about some of her views. Who was talking about the cost of living and austerity, and that's why people potentially might be shoplifting, which is no reason for breaking the law. But I think you're right. I think, certainly from what I pick up from talking to local police officers, there is a trade, literally, either in people nicking stuff because they want to sell it for themselves, or they're selling it for gangs and they're getting money to spend on drugs. Right, let's take some calls. Dan is in Lancashire. Afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon.
What would you like to say, sir?
Well, I was listening to the show a little earlier and I caught Rachel from the IPPR, and I must say I disagree with quite a lot of what she was saying.
Yeah.
Not a problem with genuine refugees, like you take the translators and everything from Afghanistan that worked with our guys, bring them in, look after them, because we put them at risk. But when you've got people who are leaving a country that's not in a good state, travelling through a dozen safe places, surely they should be claiming asylum in the first safe place they reach, because they're fleeing war. They're not fleeing a bad economy. And I do believe you can actually claim asylum at a British embassy or a British consulate overseas. So there is another route.
I think it is the argument that's often used, and I did put this to Rachel, and I'll be as polite as I can be because she's not here to defend herself, but I did put it to her. It's too easy, particularly for those who are pro what's happening with the channel crossings, or indeed, someone who thinks that we should be letting more people into this country. It is too easy to take the view to try and shut down the debate that everyone who's coming here illegally is simply, fleeing tyranny, because they're not.
No. I mean, I know our immigration figures are high, and I know that the NHS uses a lot of people, but surely we should be using the American system. Now, I lived and worked in America a few years back, and when my visa ran out, or as it was coming to the end, and I said to my company, I'd like to stay, like to carry on working, they then have to repost the job, show the government that there is still a need for me, and then they can extend my visa or give me that magical green card. But why aren't we doing that? Because that would give us maybe 3-4 years to train up the people we need to actually do these jobs, and then we can say, thanks very much for all your hard work.
Yeah.
You can go home.
No, I hear what you're saying, and the problem is, we end up with someone putting a scheme in place and the new government comes in and they kick it out and then starts all over again. So there's no consistency and nothing ever gets the time to get up and running. Cheers, Dan. Going to talk to Steve in Scunthorpe. Hello, Steve.
Hi, nice to speak to you.
You too, mate. Go on.
Yeah, you had a lady on earlier talking about, we should be fair and give people this, give people that.
Yeah, that's Rachel from the IPPR, yeah.
Yeah, when I see MPs claiming all these expenses that they don't really need, Starmer, I mean, he gets things free, which I would think that's barter, go to the go to the tax people.
Yeah, I think there is a difference, and now let me just explain for a second. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. But MPs claiming for stuff. Some people use the term expenses, other people allowances. And I a long time ago I used to run an MP's office. Right, I did it for a year because I wanted to understand how it worked. And they will claim for plates in that office because the staff need something to eat their lunch off. Right now, I don't think that personally is particularly excessive. However, we know about the expenses scandal of 2008, 2009, when you had MPs claiming for duck houses and stuff like that. It really was taking the mickey. You're also right, though, to raise the point, though it's slightly different, isn't it? We have a Prime Minister who's had his suits and his shoes and his glasses paid for by a Labour donor, which is just a shocker.
That's right. And when I see on the TV charities, please support the blind dogs, say.
Yeah.
I don't think there should be a blind dog charity. I think the country should pay for that. I will willingly pay for things. I see charity shops in the streets.
Because what we've seen over the past is we've seen charities picking up the slack for stuff that the government used to do, but cut, various governments, in order to save money. Steve, thank you for your call. That's pretty much it for the last 2.5 hours. Thank you for hanging around. I've been Duncan Barkes in for Peter Cardwell. Now listen, a couple of things. If you missed any of this show and you want to catch up, you can do it in a number of different ways. You can go to Talk on YouTube, talkTV on YouTube, and you can watch and listen to this show again, or you can download the Talk app and do exactly the same thing. And if you want a lesson in how to nick a washing machine, you must do that now, because there's a shoplifting epidemic going on. Have a good afternoon.